Mr. Abraham, thank you very much for this interview. Recently at the Council of Europe, you stated that in Georgia we're witnessing not only the collapse of European values, but of European civilization as a whole. The situation in the country is indeed worsening by the day. A hearing on Georgia was held in Bundestag Foreign Affairs Committee at your initiative. I would like to ask, what leverage does Germany have today to influence the Georgian Dream government, which is depriving the Georgian people of their European future?
Yes, well, we share that view. We are really worried that Georgia is step by step losing the character, the quality of a democracy. We have seen the EU report on enlargement in very clear wording. So it's not only the point of view from Germany, from Berlin, or from us here at the Christian Democrats. The Commission says clearly it considers Georgia as a candidate country in name only. And that might happen to democracy too, that it's only a democracy in name. And this is not acceptable for a candidate country and a full member of the Council of Europe. So what we have to make clear is that any further escalation will have consequences. And you were asking on possible responses, possible reactions. So there are three levels. You have already indicated our national level here in Germany. We will be having a discussion and a point of the agenda in the Foreign Affairs Committee today on the situation of Georgia, and I will use the opportunity to advocate for further measures against those who are responsible. And this is the quite difficult challenge to meet those who are responsible and not those in the population. The people should not suffer from mistakes in the government and in the leadership when it comes to the relationship to Europe. So we have the national level right today. We have, of course, the EU level, and we have the level of the Council of Europe. Sanctions is mainly an EU affair. And to conclude my response to your question, I would advocate targeted sanctions, financial sanctions, and travel consequences against those targeted groups of people who are part of the oppressive measures. That's the criteria.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you. Recent experience in Georgia has shown that sanctions work, and sanctions are something Georgian Dream is truly afraid of. Yes, Germany has imposed individual sanctions at the national level, as you mentioned, on certain high-ranking Georgian officials. But that is not enough. The regime is dumb and is becoming increasingly brutal. Don't you think the circle of sanctioned people should be widened? Former and current high officials, judges, members of parliaments, who should be on that list, and how realistic is it that this will happen?
Yes, exactly. Those who are identifiable, who are identified as being involved in oppressive, anti-democratic, anti-media measures, they targeted, they should be put under sanctions. No broad sanctions against Georgia, of course, because Georgia is at our hearts. Georgia is a European country, and it should not be hindered in its development. So concentrate on those who are responsible, and indeed expand the number and the quality of people who are responsible, to make them understand that any further escalation has further consequences. Simply to make understand that in the European reality of the Council of Europe, of the European Union, Georgia being a candidate state, there is no room under the obligations the country has for measures we are witnessing now. It is high time to stop them and to return to a political process. That is very important.
Yes, it is very important that you separated people from the authorities. But since coordinated European sanctions are delayed, let me ask you directly, do you think that Russia has occupied our country, that Europe has lost Georgia, and it is no longer worth fighting for?
No, I absolutely do not share that view, because I know your country and I know the Georgians, the population, and I know that no one is willing to become part of the Russian empire in the wider sense again. So, and this is why Europe, the other partners in the European Union, in the Council of Europe, are themselves obliged to stand by Georgia. So, no, I'm still optimistic that the European course of your country will prevail.
It's pleasant to hear that, and probably especially for those who are fighting in the streets, and even more so for those who are in prison. Politicians behind bars like Zura Japaridze, Nika Gvaramia, Givi Targamadze, Elena Khoshtaria, Georgi Vashadze, Levan Khabeishvili, Irakli Okruashvili, and Mikhail Saakashvili, Georgia's third president, who was unexpectedly transferred from hospital back to prison, where penalties add to their sentences only because they have Western connections.
Yes, yes, I'm fully aware of that because I know many of them personally, and so I'm really with them, and this motivates me, of course, to work for democracy in partnership with Georgia. And what you've just been describing is simply an illustration of what goes wrong and what should immediately be reversed.
Yes, that is why a strong reaction is necessary. Mr. Abraham, I want to touch on another important issue. Germany's ambassador, who had been recalled for consultations, has returned to Georgia. An outstanding diplomat whose support we have felt constantly, his recall and his return. What message is that to Georgian Dream, and under what instructions did he return to Tbilisi?
It is in diplomatic life always better to not go public with internal instructions. It is, I think, from my point of view, it is a very positive sign of solidarity with Georgia that the post of the ambassador is not being left vacant, but to have an ambassador who is reporting about the situation in the country, and a person, a representative of Germany, who is well known, well respected, and plays an extremely important role on a very good level, even though this means that the relations to the government are under extreme pressure because of the steps the government has been taking, and they need to be reversed immediately. So the return of the ambassador for me is a good sign of solidarity with those who are working for a European future of your country.
Was there a request from Georgian Dream to replace the ambassador?
No, I have no information according to them. And it is, by the way, not in the wish list of any country to decide who becomes ambassador where. No, I have no information on that. And I'm very optimistic and hopeful that His Excellency Peter Fischer, our ambassador will continue his excellent work in Tbilisi.
Regarding to our ambassador to Germany, what is your relationship with him, and has he been invited to the Bundestag Foreign Affairs Committee hearing?
No, no, this is an internal discussion in the committee, and it's not public, and it's good so, because that leaves room for parliamentary debate and parliamentary questions. So this is not public, and so there will be no one except the members of the Foreign Affairs Committee.
What will follow this process? Will you put the Georgia issue on the plenary session agenda?
No, we will have to decide when the best time is to send even stronger parliamentary signals into the relationship and into the discussion. This is to be decided, another strong resolution or ideas like that. On paper, and that is the problem, on paper, we are very clear. We had, in the last months, 2 extremely good, strong resolutions of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. The European Parliament has adopted resolutions. The problem is the words are important because they show our understanding and our joint understanding, but it needs, of course, concrete measures to make these words act.
This will truly be decisive for Georgian citizens who have been standing in the streets for more than 300 days fighting for our European future, because this concerns Georgia and its future most of all. But on the other hand, how strategically important is democratic Georgia for Germany and the whole Europe?
Well, Georgia for me is absolutely an integral part of Europe. So, as we have stated in the Lisbon Treaty, in the EU Treaty, every European country has the right to become member of the European Union. Of course, the Union has to be ready for that. So, the character of European Georgia is not a geopolitical decision made by short-term ideas. It is a historic reality. On the other hand, of course, Georgia is in a very interesting and, by the way, very beautiful area of the continent, and being a bridge between many greater regions. And so the long-term perspective of Georgia is extremely positive in my view, but it needs, of course, the right political preconditions, and they are not met by those who are fighting against basic democratic rights.
This is an important statement from you. And finally, I want to ask about the war that gave a chance for 10 countries to enter Europe. Many in Georgia think our fate is tied to the war in Ukraine, and that if Russia is defeated in Ukraine, Georgia's liberation from the Russian regime will become more likely. How do you view these prospects?
Well, I absolutely understand this point of view, because the threat coming from Russia is concerning all of Europe. It is, of course, very much reality in Ukraine as the first and foremost victim. Of course, you feel the pressure in Georgia, but even us here in Germany, we are targeted by Russian measures. So it's a threat. In this war, as a peak, is a threat not only for Ukraine fighting against the aggression and Georgia feeling consequences of it, but for all of Europe. And it is so important that this war comes to an end and Ukraine prevails and wins, because if this is the case, there will be no longer be the game playing with emotions and fears and worries of people in Georgia, but also in Germany, people who are afraid of being somehow torn into the war. So it needs the decisive assistance to Ukraine to overcome that nightmare. And then it would be good for all of Europe, from Georgia to Ireland.
Thank you very much for your wishes.
Yes, yes, all the best, all the very best for you, for your team, for the station, and hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All the best to Georgia. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for your wishes.